All right, so tonight we're diving into a really sudden and pretty dramatic shift in Donald Trump's whole position on the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, according to a late-night monologue that we're breaking down, this wasn't just some random change of heart, no. It was actually triggered by a major revolt coming from inside his own party. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's the game plan. First, we're going to look at the pressure from within the Republican Party that apparently forced his hand. Then, we'll cover the reversal itself, the political breakup with a major ally that followed, some pretty wild reports of unusual behavior, and then, well, then there's a really strange detour the monologue took that you're going to want to stick around for.
Okay, so first up, what kicked all of this off? The monologue we're analyzing says the whole thing started with a challenge that was, completely unexpected. It wasn't coming from his usual political opponents, it was coming from inside the House.
And that really gets to the heart of it, right? I mean, the monologue we're looking at poses this huge question. What could possibly be going on that would make so many members of his own party decide to break ranks on an issue as explosive as this one?
And here is the number that apparently changed everything: 50. According to the source material, we're not just talking about a couple of dissenters here. This was a group of at least 50 House Republicans who were reportedly ready to team up with Democrats and force a vote to get those files released. And in Washington, a number like that is a serious threat. So with that kind of pressure building from his own team, the monologue argues it led directly to this absolutely stunning, very public U-turn on a position he'd been holding on to for almost a year.
And you can really see just how stark this reversal was. The source makes it clear. For 10 solid months, the strategy was to fight the release of these files. And then, practically overnight, it's a complete 180. The message flips from total resistance to full-throated public encouragement.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The monologue points out this huge contrast between what was being said in public and what was allegedly happening in private. The public line was, "We have nothing to hide." But the source claimed that just last week, people like Representative Boebert were supposedly being called into the Situation Room and pressured to back down.
And the host of the monologue we're breaking down, well, they had a pretty sharp take on that statement, "We have nothing to hide." The commentary basically suggested that the use of the word "we" was a pretty transparent, self-serving move when faced with a political corner he couldn't get out of.
But the story doesn't end there. The source alleges that the fallout from all this also caused a huge public split with one of his most loyal and outspoken supporters. And this is where it gets official. The monologue highlighted this statement as the moment the alliance was publicly broken. It even pointed out, kind of for effect, that he was apparently so angry he didn't even use one of his usual nicknames for, which just shows how serious the split was.
And get this, in a really fascinating twist that the source pointed out, right as all this is going down, Marjorie Taylor Greene was apparently taking on a totally different public tone, apologizing for toxic politics and asking for people to just be kind to each other. From there, the monologue we're analyzing kind of zooms out, suggesting that all of these external political pressures were linked to reports of increasingly strange personal behavior, painting a picture of what the source straight up called a meltdown. So the monologue starts building this sense of suspense, and it all comes down to this one question about a searchable database that was made from the Epstein estate files. It just puts it out there. How many times is his name actually in there? And to add a little context, the source brings up this moment from a congressional hearing where the FBI director was asked the same question point blank, and he stayed really evasive, just saying he didn't know the exact number.
And then, the monologue drops its answer. 2020. That's the number of times it claims his name shows up in those files. The source then couldn't help but point out the irony, calling 2020 a particularly unlucky number for him, for, well, more than one reason.
And it wasn't just about the numbers. To really sell this meltdown narrative, the monologue threw in a bunch of pretty wild anecdotes. We're talking about reports of him blasting Phantom of the Opera from the White House, playing Elton John's Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me over and over, and a story about him getting an MRI without even knowing why, only to claim his doctor said it was the best result he has ever seen.
Okay, and this is where the source material we're looking at takes a very, very sharp, almost surreal turn. To wrap up its whole narrative, the monologue just completely pivots to a historical comedy bit.
So, seemingly out of nowhere, the monologue starts talking about what it calls new research into Adolf Hitler's DNA. The joke, as the source presented it, was to run down this list of supposed genetic issues and personal shortcomings, just as this totally bizarre historical tangent.
And this whole comedy segment just wrapped up with this rapid-fire list of fake History Channel TV show titles. We're showing them here just so you can get a feel for the structure and the style of the joke that the source material used to end its commentary.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, we've seen how one source connects the dots from a single political pressure point, showing how it can spiral out into a policy reversal, a public feud with an ally, and all these reports of strange behavior. It's a story that really mixes serious political analysis with pure spectacle, and it leaves us with this huge question. In moments like these, how much of what we're actually seeing is real political substance, and how much of it is just part of the show?